Hey, this is Rerun. Welcome to my TF2 map showcase for CTF Topper. I made this map for the TF2maps.net TFConnect charity contest, in which you had to create a map that prominently features the TFConnect Smithmas tree. Now, this contest, they were very free about it. You could use it however you wanted as long as it was prominent and followed a few rules. All things considered, I think I did pretty well. Despite not winning, I had a lot of fun making this map, and I did score decently and get some nice words from the judges. This map is actually my third attempt at a serious TF2 map, and my first contest entry actually. Contest aside, I got inspired by Mega Pieman PhD and Zeus to make a video detailing the process that I went through when making this map. I'm a big fan of those design process videos, and I like seeing how things are done behind the scenes, and I saw that there weren't a lot of these types of videos on YouTube, so I thought I'd make my own. If you don't know Mega Pieman PhD, he made King of the Hill Synthetic and PD Farmageddon. I'll leave a link to the playlist where he goes through the development process of King of the Hill Synthetic in the description. It's a really good watch. I'm trying to do this unscripted, but I'm not as good as Mega Pieman PhD on this stuff, so there's going to be a few cuts here and there. Without any further delay, let's get to the actual map. Welcome to CTF Topper A1. This is the first version of the map that I made. During the planning phase, I bounced around a few different ideas of what game mode this should be, but eventually I landed on Invade Capture the Flag, which is a custom game mode where there's one flag that spawns in the center, and you need to capture it at the enemy team's base. I think I was inspired by Chimney by Zyth, which is another map that uses the Invade CTF game mode. Now, Invade CTF being a custom game mode, there's not a lot of resources on the game design principles of this sort of mode. So I had to go by other examples of how this sort of game mode should work and what would make a good map for it or not. I started the planning for this map by sketching out the layout that I wanted on a piece of paper. I think sketching out your map is a good idea during the planning phase, so you have the groundwork of what you want to do before you start blocking out in Hammer. I designed this map with a bit of a twist in mind. I wanted to have fun with this contest and play on the creativity aspect of the tree. I think the TF2 logo at the top of the tree really gave me inspiration for what I wanted to do with this map. The main gimmick of this map is the addition of a Doomsday elevator. Each team's base has a tree with an elevator that goes to the top of the tree. You capture the flag by bringing the elevator all the way to the top of the tree and going into the star, and it only took one capture to win the game. So, when designing this, I thought it would be a good idea, but in practice it proved to not be that. The elevator was way too slow, and it proved to be the main cause of stalemates, as nobody could get up to it, so the elevator got switched out in later versions of the map. This whole base area is sorta designed after different 5CP finale stages. If you look around, you can definitely see the influence of it. I don't know how good of an idea it was to start out with the finale area, because most of the gameplay goes around mid and the connector areas. Another potential flaw in my planning is I designed mid and the bases separately, and then worked out how to connect them. If you can't already tell, there's going to be a lot of retrospective thinking in this video. But I think it'll serve to see examples of what to and mostly what not to do when making a map. I'll say this, the most important thing you can do when making a map is to have fun, because if you're not having fun when making a map, why bother with it? And I had fun, despite its flaws. But it's important not to ignore those flaws, because if you get too clingy to a project or a thing in that project, the end result won't be as good because of that thing. No matter how much you like a feature in your map, if it's not playing well, it has to be changed, and that's why the elevator is not there in other versions of this map. One last thing on this subject. If you're on the fence about making a map because you're worried it's not going to be good, don't worry about that. No mapper is going to hit it home on their first try. You gotta hone your skills, so to speak. Don't be discouraged to compete in a contest because you might surprise yourself like I did. Even though I didn't score well, I had fun. Moving from spawn to mid, we have the connectors. Like I said previously, these connectors were more of an afterthought than being planned in the original sketch. And that turned out to be not good because most of the fighting took place in these connectors. There's 3 routes to mid from spawn. You've got the main route in the center, and 2 routes that go into side buildings off of either side of the main route. I wanted to have a large main route that was somewhat choky, but you still had other options to go through. The left route is inspired by 5CP map Sunshine, which is in the game. One thing I really like from Sunshine is this staircase of props that you can climb up to get to this route. I don't know that the left path is really inspired by anything, and more came from my sketches trying to connect mid to the base. A few parts of this map are definitely inspired by Chimney, the other Invade CTF map I mentioned earlier, especially this bridge that connects the 2 high ground paths. When I was mushing the 2 parts of the map together, the left path really fell into place kinda perfectly, and I was able to get 2 routes out of this room, a lower one and an upper one. The lower one also let you access this tunnel route through the team's base, but because it bypasses the main objective, it wasn't really used much. Speaking of the main objective, a majority of my time developing this map was spent figuring out how to make the Doomsday elevator work, but eventually I found a working prefab by fault, and I had to modify the system a bit to make it work with 2 rockets and 1 intel, but thank you very much Fault for the prefab. Going back to the left side route hallway, from here you could go 2 different ways. You can either go outside to the main area, or you could go to this alleyway area. Going to the alleyway put you up against a wood wall, which you could climb over with these crates. It's a one-way route. This would have been a cool idea and I would have kept it in, but due to some routing issues I had to remove it, and people thought it was an out-of-bounds area because of the way it looked. Funny story about these crates, I accidentally made the dynamite props prop dynamics, and that made it so they could be broken with damage so people couldn't get over this route anymore. Going out the other doorway leads you to the mid-connector area, which connects all the routes up. With the other route, you can really see how my making 2 sections of the map and then cramming them together approach didn't really work. Based on the geometry, I didn't really have a lot of room to work with for this room, and the doorway is pretty small. But there's not 2 routes on this area, there's only one that goes to high ground. And you can really see the sunshine inspiration on this area. Going back to the mid-connector, over here we have this boarded off wall. This part was designed so that the map would make sense, as cars need a way to get in and out of this area. But originally above there was going to be another route. It was going to be a walkable overpass that you could access from this room. And maybe there was another room here that you could go through to get to mid. But I learned from a previous map that I worked on, King of the Hill Propagate, which is in the works right now, that I didn't want to add too many routes, so I limited myself to the big 3 that we have on the map right now. And also I didn't want flank routes that could bypass the point completely. I wanted to funnel players to mid. But as you'll see later, I think I funneled them too hard in this version, as these are the only ways that you can really get to mid, with this road specifically being held down by 1 single sniper. So aside from the alleyway route I talked about earlier, these are the ways to get to mid. You can go through the main route, which is this road, or you can go through this building. Funny story about this building. This shelf was meant to block a sightline, but by removing a crate on this part of the shelf, you could crouch through it. And my idea when I made that was a spy could sneak through this room without having to bump into people by crouching under the shelf. In retrospect, and you're probably seeing this now, this room is very, very teeny tiny, and that's fixed in later versions. Now we are finally at the midpoint of the map, and you'll notice this map is diagonally symmetric. I don't know what came over me in the planning phase to make it like this, but it is. I based this midpoint off of the only other diagonally symmetric map that I know, King of the Hill Probed. In specific, you'll see that this building that encompasses the front of mid looks a lot like the building that's behind the point in Probed. I wanted to have a building on the midpoint of the map, and I didn't know what else to put here, so it's just a flank route. Now on the other side of the midpoint we have this building, and the routing and planning I had up to this point really were the detriment of this building. This building was doomed from the start the way I planned things. It had to be diagonally symmetric, but it also had to fit this side route that I already had. And the way that this doorway is positioned really eliminated a lot of the options I had with this building. Like I couldn't have a doorway to the balcony from here, because the path into the building is in the way. So what I ended up having to do is making this really weird horseshoe design for the building, with this odd square area where the doorways were. Now coming out of this building onto the balcony, we have my favorite part of this map, the crashed bus. Now I know you have a lot of questions, like how did a bus get in this position? I have no idea. I wanted a walkable bridge from this back building to the midpoint, and a wooden board just looked odd. And because of the theme of this map being in a city, I wanted to include a bus somehow. And I thought, hey, this bus prop blocks this route through mid, but it also serves as a bridge. So I somehow got someone to crash a bus in this perfect position. Needless to say, it did not last. Once the feedback round started, everyone just went to the bus and said, why is this bus here? And then come next version, it's gone. Just like that. And that is the tragedy of the CTF Topper A1 bus. Anyway, this is the midpoint of the map. My original plan was for it to be like a town square celebrating Christmas. Hold that thought. You see this shadow right here? I have no idea what causes this shadow, and whenever I look at it, it goes away. If you have any idea, if you're like a mapper and you have any idea what causes that shadow, please let me know in the comments. Anyway, from this midpoint, you can either climb up on this prop or go up these stairs in this room, which will bring you up to this high ground room. You can either go out on these balconies and cross the bridge, or you can go through inside. This is the most Koth-probed part of the map, but behind the tree in the center you will notice there is a route. Going down here will lead you to the subway side path. This subway path was inspired by past districts subway area, and it allows you to get past the road area and behind mid. The entrance to this area was another sad victim of the way I designed this map, connecting two parts of it together. If I had more time to plan this, I would have made the entrance to the subway more grandiose than just like this ramp here. But next to the subway entrance is another one of my favorite parts of this map, this corner. I don't know, there's just something about it that's charming. Maybe it's because of the window that lets you see into the ramp down the subway. I think that's everything covered. Because it's symmetrical, everything that I've shown you is mirrored on the other side. Closing thoughts about this version of the map. This being the first version of the map, it laid the groundwork for what was to come. And while a lot of stuff about the map changed, the core sort of layout stayed the same. One of my favorite things in development is seeing like before and after shots, the sweep between different versions of something. So I'll be doing those sorts of shots. One tip I can give when you're making a map: when you think you're done, you are not done, and what I mean by that is, load up your map and walk around it, look for anything that's out of place, not supposed to be there, like a bug. Because one time making this map, I thought I was done, I thought I made the final compile, then I loaded it up in game and it was full of holes. So yeah, just walk through your map, find anything that's wrong, fix it, and then you're done. Back to the map, after I got this tested on the TF2maps.net server, I went through and categorized every single piece of feedback that I got to see what needed work. The major problems of this version of the map were: 1. It was overscaled. This is a pattern I've noticed when I make my maps. When I first make them, I make them too big, and then the next version I have to scale them down. And I can say, getting feedback and making a new version of the map, it can be hard because you gotta think about what's the issue with this map. And then depending on the severity of your issue, you've either gotta just like tidy up things, or you've gotta tear down entire sections of your work. But don't be afraid to do that. Like tearing down something that's already there and then replacing it with something new. It won't be perfect, but you can fix it up. I find that when I tear an area of a map apart and then put something new in it, sometimes it just fits. And then you're like, why didn't I think of that in the first place? That's why feedback's so important. The second issue that the feedback revealed was the routing, specifically the connector to mid area. Like I said before, a single sniper could cover this route, and the only way through here besides this road was the building that was really small. So I had to work on that. Another route problem was on mid. The bus blocked a potential way that people could get through, and I thought, hey, if I remove the bus, that'd be a cool route. Along with the feedback that people were weirded out by the bus, it had to go. Another issue that cropped up with the routing was sniper sightlines. There were a few sniper sightlines that blocked off important routes. So yeah, the main issues of this version were scaling and routing, and I did my best to fix those for the next version. Welcome to CTF Topper A2. This is the second version of the map that I released. And this version is really where I found my footing with this map. A lot of the layout that is in this version stays to the end, and I more figured out what I wanted to do with this map of this version. So before we get into anything, I wanted to show off something that I missed in the first version. In the first version, I never really showed off where the players spawned. But in this spawn room, you have the neat detail of this meeting table. But in A1 of this map, there were 3 ways to get out of spawn. You could go straight ahead and walk out of either side of this room, or if you turn to your side, you could go down this long hallway. In retrospect, this hallway was really long, and not really worth going through when you can just go through the front end. I think my mentality making this hallway was like an anti-spawn camping door, but nobody bothered with it because it was so long. So in A2 of this map, I made the spawn a lot shorter. And doing this, I made the side path more in the view of the player and a lot shorter, so instead of coming out of this wall, you come out of this. Moving on to the bigger changes in this version. The Doomsday elevator has been swapped out for a jump pad, and now it requires 3 captures to win. I designed this to still be entertaining, while being less stalematey like the lift was. Once you get to the jump pad, you just jump up to the star and cap. In hindsight, and especially in later versions, the jump pad might have made it too easy to capture, but I think it played way better than the lift did. If you'll notice, this whole area is much shorter than it was in the previous version. By making the map more compact, I tried to fix the scaling issues that the map originally had. And with this scaling, I think the map played way better. If you'll also notice, the red spawn got a bit of a facelift. The blue spawn did too, and in this version I started detailing the map because part of the criteria for the scoring of the map was detailing. The subway and the spawns got the heaviest detailing, but the rest of the map got general textures as well. Moving from red spawn to the connectors, I think the connectors got the biggest change in this version. First off, this hallway was changed around. As you can see, the alleyway with the boarded up crates is now gone and has been replaced with a genuine route to mid. The store has been moved around to accommodate for this change. There's a bunch of reasons why a bunch of stuff's moved. First off, the teeny tiny building from A1 has been made bigger. It's a lot easier to move around in here now, and you'll notice that the doorways changed positions. To help with some sightlines, I had to get rid of the feature that allowed you to crouch under the shelf, but with how spacious this room is now, I don't think anyone will need to use it, and no one really used it in the first place. Making this building bigger helped with a lot of different stuff, like right here you can see that the street route has been made a lot slimmer as a result. And you can't snipe back here from anymore because these crates and signs are in the way. I'm a big fan of these crates and signs because not only do they block sightlines, but they look good for the map. Taking a detour to the subway, you'll see that it's been a bit detailed. Getting back on track, we are now at mid. Mid was subject to a lot of changes in this version. As you can see, it is overall a lot smaller than it was previously. And I'm a big fan of the direction that mid took in this version. The front of mid buildings aren't as large as they used to be. And yeah, just as a whole, making the mid smaller was a great idea, because it made everything just like feel better. Funny story about these ramps on the square. During testing this version, I figured out that demo knights could trimp off of these ramps, and that could make it pretty far around the map. Nothing overpowered, but just good fun. Although in playtesting, I'm really sad that nobody played demo knight. As you can see, the plant boxes changed shape. The ones around the corner were made wider, and the main one was changed into more of a diamond shape to accommodate for the missing bus. As you can see here, the bus has been replaced with a route through mid, so now you don't have to go to where the intel is to get around mid. And now we are back to this building. Like I said before, this building was doomed from the start the way I designed the map. As a result of making mid more narrow and making the map just less wide in general, this building in specific suffered a lot. There was no more space for those doors to be there anymore, so they had to go. So now this room is just an indoor route with 2 ways in and out. After getting feedback about this room in this version, I had to make the decision to remove it later. So this is the last time you'll be seeing it. During planning, I actually thought of a route from this room to the back of mid building, but it never came to fruition. So I think those are the biggest changes to this map. A lot of the parts of the map were shortened, some gameplay changes I tried to do to make the map better, and some layout changes to make the map play better. But overall, the core layout is still there. Now for some of the non-layout related changes to this map. There is now a finale sequence when a team wins. When one team scores all 3 points, the rocket that is disguised under the tree will launch. I originally wanted the tree to be attached to the rocket and like spinning, but I couldn't figure out how to get it to parent to the animation, and I didn't want to waste time when the deadline was approaching. So instead, the rocket will break the tree. In this version, I sort of figured out what I wanted the story of this map to be. I think more maps should include the story, like why are the mercs doing this in the first place? I think that's good fun. So the goal of the mercs in this map is to launch the other team's rocket, which delivers a deadly payload of radiated snow over the city. And this is good for the winning team because the city will blame the other team for the rocket launch. And you could argue that the city was funding their operations, or maybe the city would sue them. So it's just bad news for the team that loses. I could have made this more clear by having like an aurora particle effect around the snow, but I never got to do that. Another fun detail is, if you look below the tree after a win, this little miniature train will start spinning for the team that loses. And if you can hear them, soundscapes have also been added to this version of the map. I feel like the playtest of this version of the map went way better than the A1 version because 1, a team actually won, and 2, there weren't a lot of complaints about the routing. The feedback I got on this map showed me that people were confused about the jump pad. I could have been a bit more clear with it. I tried to add signage around it in the next version, but I noticed that other maps that had jump pads in this contest, they had a particle under them, and I'm sad that I didn't include those. Another fun thing, in this version of the map, the vents were not team filtered, so defenders would try to leave spawn and then they would get caught on their own vents. Then they'd just be stuck in an infinite loop of being on the vent. But about people being confused with the vents, people were unaware that the only way to capture in this version was to use the vents, so they would bypass them and try to capture the tree from the tree itself, or try to capture it from behind. Another problem is, I don't know if this is from it being a custom game mode or just my bad signage, but people would often pick up the flag and try to take it back to their own base. There were a few ways I could have gone about fixing this. One thing I tried to prototype is, if you try to take it back to your own base, there would be a trigger that makes you drop the intel, but I never figured out how to get this right because it would trap you if you try to take it from your base to the mid. That's a byproduct of it being one flag. So I settled for a particle which would appear above the enemy's tree to help show the flag holder which way to go. Even if the capture the flag HUD does tell you where to go and does tell you where the flag holder is, people don't really look at it, so I had to add these particles to make it more obvious where the flag holder was and where they needed to go. And last but not least, there is a bugged prop in the blue keg room that is off-center. I think that's all for A2, so I'm going to move on to A3. Welcome to CTF Topper A3. This is the third version of the map and the final one before the deadline. Now the one I'm on right now isn't actually the version A3 of the map, it's version A3a, and the differences between the two versions are so minor I don't think it's worth bothering with A3 instead of going from A3a. But I will touch on what's different between A3 and A3a at the end. Starting from red spawn, you will immediately notice that everything has been textured. All the dev textures have been swapped out for proper textures, as I wanted to get proper textures out before the end of the contest to get more points for detailing. I would never detail a map this much at a version as early as A3, as alpha is more for the prototyping phase of your map. You want to get your layout in alpha. Texturing is more of a beta thing, but I wanted to get it looking good for the contest. Most of the layout is the same as A2, but there have been some changes to make it better. To start us off, at this door of the spawn, there are now some props in this corner to block people from staying there. Watching the demo of the A2 test, I noticed that one person would immediately get killed by a scout that was camping in this corner as soon as they left. And while that is incredibly funny, it had to go. Moving on to the objective, you can see here that I added a ramp behind the tree, so even if you were to bypass the jump pad, you could still cap from back here. And in this version I tried to make it more clear that the jump pad is there and what it's for. But yeah, the biggest change in this version of the map is the textures and detailing. Moving on to the connector, I did change around to the med packs in this area. Previously in this area there were a lot of medium health and ammo packs, and that made attackers really strong, so I had to swap out some for smaller ones. Nothing much of the layout here changed, so moving on to mid. As you can see, the building in the back of mid has been removed. I'm not going to repeat myself on why the building was removed, doomed from the start and all that, but it has been replaced with this more open patio route. I think this serves the structure of mid better than the room ever did, and it still serves somewhat the same purpose. It looks way better than the building did here. But if you look behind the patio, you will see some detailing I added. And if you look real closely right here, you will see the CTF Topper A1 bus has returned. Sadly, it's not part of the gameplay space anymore. It's been reduced to a background detail. But still, it's back. I'm really happy with how the detailing turned out on the buildings that connect in back of mid. Overall, I think I did pretty well with the detailing in mid. But yeah, I think the only layout change between A2 and A3 is the back of mid building being removed and swapped out. A3 was more the finishing touches, finishing polish kind of build, because the deadline for this contest was rapidly approaching as I made A3. But I am definitely happy with how the detailing turned out. Moving on to the particle I talked about earlier. As you can see, when somebody picks up the intel, a particle that goes through walls will appear above their head. This helps to keep track of where the intel carrier is, which is some useful info for this type of game mode. And as you can see over there, the particle is appearing above the tree where I need to go. The particle is a bit finicky. I couldn't figure out how to make it not be culled out by optimization, but I sort of remedied this by having the tutorial hint appear as well. The hint is also shown whether you're looking at it or not, so it helps to guide the flag holder in the right direction. Like I said, not a lot of changes between A2 and A3, the main thing was polishing up and detailing it. So let's briefly touch on the differences between A3 and A3a. Aside from the clipping issues and a few bug fixes I did in A3a, the big difference is that in A3, you have to capture 3 times to win. Now, during the playtest of A3, this turned out to be a bit of a problem, as every time someone capped, time was added, and I don't know if it's more the game mode or my map or just the people in the playtest, but a single round lasted a very, very long time. So long that the 20-minute timer for each map test ran out before I could have a second round. Now this playtest was on like the very last day of the contest, so I did sort of a panic fix by making it only 1 cap to win. However, in practice, I don't know if this was a good idea or not. I got a lot of mixed feelings about this, and I got a lot of mixed feedback about it as well. Some people said that in a real setting the stalemates wouldn't matter and people would actually go to score. But the rounds lasting that long and having like a maximum of 5 total captures, I think I panicked and changed it to just 1 capture. However, having 1 capture had its own drawbacks. A single capture round could last as little as 1 minute, and this did get me some points knocked off by one of the judges. But I feel like the chance to have a really short round is way better than the chance to have a 20-minute round. And I feel like if I had 3 captures in the state that this map was in right now, I would have scored way lower than I did. But yeah, I'm just not sure what the right decision would have been. But now the contest is over, and if I ever do move forward with this map, I'll look into that issue. But those are the only differences between A3 and A3a. And I believe that is everything for this version of the map, and subsequently all versions of the map. So I will now touch on the contest itself. The contest had a maximum score of 25, and the total scores of each judge were averaged together to get your final score. My final score was 15.4 out of 25. And that score put me in 11th place, which is about the middle of the contest. For what this map is, being a custom game mode, being my 3rd try at a proper map, and my first ever contest entry, I'd say that I am very satisfied with the score that I got. Different judges had different emotions about this map. The highest score I got from one of the judges was 19, thank you very much 14-bit, and the lowest being 13. Like I said before, I didn't expect to do this well at the contest at all. I entered this contest with low expectations, just wanting to have fun, and I learned a lot, and I had a lot of fun making this map, and I surprised myself like I said earlier. My map was also featured on the TFConnect charity livestream during the contest segment. But yeah, I'm happy with how this went. Looking at these before and after shots, you can really see the difference between A1 and A3. But this does bring the journey of CTF Topper to a close at the moment. I don't know if I'll ever work on this map again, but if I do, I'll probably change the game mode up. Maybe reformat it or remake it as a powerhouse type map and call it CP Cropper, set it on a farm or something. But for now I might focus on other things. I have another map in the works called Propagate that I want to work on. I feel like making a video series about that one too, but I don't know for sure right now. But if you want to download Topper for yourself and play the different versions, they will be on TF2maps.net and I will link them below. If you have any additional questions about the map on things that I didn't cover in this video or just anything in general, let me know in the comments and I'll see if I can reply to them. I will also leave a link to the TFConnect charity livestream and the TF2maps.net segment on it. And I think that is it for the TF2 Topper segment of this video. And now I'm going to briefly touch on the state of this channel. If you've been here long enough, you will know that I was once a Roblox animator. However, I am no longer that. I've been thinking of using this channel for other things, and I'm not sure what to do with the old animations. I've been thinking of archiving them in a playlist, but let me know what you think I should do in the comments, if you feel so inclined. But to round things up, I'll answer any comments that I can, and for now, I will see you around. Goodbye.